there are no points to really think about. And what is the driver's sort of mindset coming into this? Is there a sort of end-of-term feel to this last race of the year?
A little bit. I think the big thing is a lot of drivers are now looking towards next year. You're only as good as your last result, and this is the longest result that's they're gonna be able to say that for, starting racing next year back in Easter time. So I think they all want to boost their confidence. They all want to go out and show themselves and go out on a high, really, for this season at this beautiful afternoon at Donington Park.
It really is, isn't it? It's turned quite a nice day, and the marshals still feeling the need to work up a bit of a sweat with the job, trying to warm themselves up a little bit. The drivers will be warmed up and ready, we hope, for 15 minutes of racing. It's the green and black car on the pole position of Ashley Marshall. Alongside him, in the traditional Swedish flag colours even, is Sebastian Arenram. They will aim to lead into turn one, but will we get all 31 cars through the first corner this time? That's also an important question to be answered. I can see Katie Milner at the back of the grid, which is good news, as we get ready to go racing for the final time in the Pro Tire Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. The red lights are on for quite a long time. They go out now, and away we go, and it's an even start from both front row men. Diving at the inside, I think, is Carlita Morocco trying to make ground from towards the back end of the top 10, but Marshall it is who will lead down towards Redgate Corner. Arenram in second, Nicosia trying to go third. They all stack up at the apex. Hold your breath, everyone. Let's hope they get through. James Kellett is sent it high, wide, and handsome, and gains some ground there as well. The champion makes his way out of Redgate, as, thankfully, does the rest of the field, all in one piece this time around. Arenram has lost second place, I think, squinting through the low sunshine to Joe Nicosia. So it's Marshall from Nicosia from Morocco is out at the inside of Arenram down to the old hairpin. Yes, it was, as Nicosia goes for the race lead. So Jerry Nicosia, who started this race down in 7th on the grid, less than half a lap later is challenging for the lead of the race, and he takes it at McLean's. That, David, was some real confidence on cold tyres.
What a mega first lap. 6 places in the first half lap. He's really caught everyone napping. Now he just needs to get his head down and try and pull a gap. Oh, he's trying.
Oh, that's not what he needs to do, though. Locking up the brakes, and Ashley Marshall says, yeah, I'll have a bit of this. I've got a chance to retake the race lead, and Carlito Morocco coming with him. So Marshall goes back through. Nicosia down to second level with Morocco, who's on the outside line. Carlito Morocco, who's done some mini racing in the past, as well as the Fiesta Championship that he fought out with Nicosia a few seasons ago. It is Jerry, though, that hangs on to the position. Kellett's in there as well. And a spin, I'm afraid, for number 35. And collected quite heavily. Here we go again. Oh no, this is all gone wrong again. This time they got towards the end of the opening lap. Lucky Kara, it was, the AM winner from race 2, that got spun first of all, and unfortunately collected by quite a few. And there is Lucky, well, what's left of his car, lying in the middle of the road. So unfortunately the look ran out there for Kara, as we're 3 abreast for the race lead at the end of the opening lap. I feel certain we're going to see a safety car shortly. The yellow flags are out. That is the best news we've seen all day there. Lucky Kara clambers out of the destroyed number 35 Ginetta. He is in one piece. The car unfortunately is not. And well, we thought, David, we've got them all through the first lap without any major drama, but when you've got 31 cars, they're all identical, they're all bunched up on the first lap, there is nothing you can do when you come out of a corner flat out and you find a car spinning in front of you.
Yeah, it looked like he was just trying to either go around the outside or was losing a place through the first part of the chicane. There's some big sausage curbs on the inside to the right-hand part of the chicane. He's hit that, and it's just bounced him up in the air, cold tyres, and it's sent him round. Red flag. Yeah, red flag, unfortunately. So they're going to stop the race whilst they attend to the drivers and get the cars out of the way. With so many cars off down there and so much debris strewn across the road, there is really little choice, because if we continued under the safety car, the rest of the field would have to traipse through the destruction every time. That would, first and foremost, potentially hinder the recovery process, because the marshals and the recovery vehicles and the safety crews need to be able to get to the cars and not have to dodge the admittedly slow-moving traffic in the crocodile behind the safety car. And it would also, of course, lead to the risk of things like punctures, bits of bodywork being picked up by the cars and ending up in places where they shouldn't be. So no choice but to stop the race. We should, though, as long as time allows, get a restart of some sort, and as and when we do, it will be back to the original grid order, because we hadn't yet completed 2 laps. We hadn't even completed 1 lap, in fact, so we'll go back to the original grid order. Ashley Marshall, though, was in the lead anyway from pole position, briefly lost it halfway around the opening lap to Jerry Nicosia, and then a mistake at this part of the circuit for the erstwhile race leader meant that Ashley Marshall found a way straight back through. So red flag for the first time today here at Donington Park.
a shame. We never like to see incidents like this, but it's important, David, isn't it, that the marshals can get out there, clear up the incidents as safely, first of all, as possible, and hopefully we'll be able to go racing again later on.
Yeah, also you don't want to just run around in the safety car for 15 minutes. It's quite a short race, so the best interests of both the marshals, the safety team recovering, looking after the drivers, and all the rest of the drivers themselves as well. It's the best option at the moment.
It looks as though they're maybe going to send the cars through the national layout here at Donington, so as to avoid doing just that, running through all of the carnage on the exit of the chicane. And Ashley Marshall being directed, yes, by the marshals through the other chicane that's used on the shorter of the two layouts here at Donington Park, so they miss out the Grand Prix loop altogether. Now, the next question is, where will they be lined up? We're hoping on the grid, because that will tell us that there's at least a fighting chance of getting a race restart. If they're directed into the pit lane, that may mean that it's end of play for the Ginetta GT5 Challenge drivers. They're slowly but surely sort of queuing up behind the pace car, and we await news on what the plans are for this race. Marshals in attendance so as to guide the drivers wherever they need to be. One driver I wanted to make note of was Katie Milner, who I told you started 28th on the grid after one car ignoring the instructions of the marshals and heading into the pit lane, presumably with damage of some sort. Didn't quite catch who that was. Katie Milner, they got the car fixed, they got it back out there for the restart, and in the first lap she came from 28th on the grid to 16th, I noticed, just before the time screen got wiped clear. So a phenomenal opening lap for Katie Milner. Yeah, brilliant driving for her. The 12 in the pit lane was the driver who decided he needed some urgent attention. That's Morgan Quinn. Now, Morgan, David's had some flashes of brilliance this year, hasn't he? It's not necessarily been a particularly consistent season. Unfortunately, some more bad luck striking now, but he's definitely a driver to watch out for in the future, as are many of them.
Yes, he's definitely, as you say, showed flashes of pace. It's one of those ones where to put together a championship challenge, you need consistency. And just lacking a little bit of that at the moment, but those flashes of pace will hopefully become a little bit easier. Another year of experience underneath his belt, which going into the 2019 season, if he comes back to Ginetta's, not everything may be as new, as daunting, or whatever, and that consistency will then come together.
Yeah, exactly, and there are lots of drivers out there who are maybe taking some of their first forays into motorsport, or maybe having raced in the GRDC or the G40 Cup, which we'll see in action for the final time a bit later on as well. They're trying to move up this racing ladder. It's not Alex Toft-Jones in the pit lane, I can assure you of that. It's car 12, Morgan Quinn, who has the bonnet up, but that's one of the great things, isn't it, about the Ginetta racing ladder, which I know you're involved with yourself and have been for quite some time, that you can quite literally take your first steps into the world of motorsport with Ginetta, and it could carry you right the way to some of the biggest sports car races in the world.
Yes, that's one of their big things, is you can go from the Ginetta Junior Championship, your first foray into car racing, or the GRDC Championship, all the way up to Le Mans, and you look at the calibre of drivers that Ginetta has produced over the years is quite impressive. The works drivers of Charlie Robertson, who has been junior champion, Super Cup champion, and now has been racing at Le Mans this year in an LMP1 car, literally the highest level of sports car racing that you can get. Other notable junior champions, Seb Morris, for example, racing Bentley in the Blancpain Endurance Series. Another chap called David Pittard, if you've ever heard of him, who's racing in the VLN this year. Yeah, they run a scholarship for the Junior Championship if people want to get involved for that. Also, they run a scholarship for the GRDC Championship under the banner of Want to Race, who also run cars in the G40 Cup and the GT5 Challenge as well.
David Pittard, I've heard that name somewhere, I can't think where. This was a replay of what happened at the start of the race, and it was a good start by both front row men. In fairness, there were some movers and shakers a bit further back. There goes Katie Miller, past 5 cars already before she reached the start line, and it was thankfully not Redgate where it all went wrong. It was a little bit later on around the lap where we had a few cars coming together. Unfortunately, we do hear that all of the drivers are okay, so it is now just a case of picking up the broken bits of Ginetta and getting the race back underway as soon as possible. Here's the head-on shot of the start, and the green and black car on the inside of row 1 got a good start. It was the 23 of Josh Hislop, I think, that went backwards from 3rd on the grid and ended up getting sucked into the middle of the pack. That allowed the likes of Jerry Nicosia through, and Nicosia was on a move from 7th into joint 3rd from the first corner. corner. That then became second on the exit of the first corner as he and Sebastian Arenram engaged in a bit of door bashing, and then he was straight onto the tail of the race leader. Katie Miller, look at her, but from the very back of the grid, storms to the outside line. There is some method in that, I think, isn't there? If everyone else dives from the inside, go where they're not, she then cut straight back across the middle of the pack and somehow picked her way through. So good start from Katie Milner. If I know she was still on the outside, she passed about a dozen cars by the time she went out of Redgate. This is where it went wrong. So it's Lucky Kera somewhere just outside the top 10. There he is, the yellow and white car. Oh yes, clip those curves. Round he went. Conor Grady just misses him. And 2 or 3 others, unfortunately. Yeah, 4 cars, I think, involved in that in total, aren't there? And we'll get a better view maybe of what those curbs did here to Lucky Kera. Here he is, squeezed on the outside through no fault of his own. An innocuous looking little spin, but unfortunately on the opening lap there is just nowhere for the rest of the pack to go. And of course when you arrive at the corner, you're maybe in somewhere in the mid-20s, you've got a sea of cars in front of you, there's tyre smoke, there's dust, you can't see what's happening, and then all of a sudden there's a car broadside in front of you, and that is one of the worst sights you can see, I think, isn't it, as a racing driver? A car stationary and there's no way of missing it.
It's one of those ones where you're unsighted by the car ahead, and by the time the other car comes, you see the stationary car, it's far too late. And looks like Will Durdle's been caught up with that. He's again another driver who's shown some flashes of pace throughout the year. I really hope he comes back next year, because I reckon he'll be a definite front runner.
Yeah, shame that caught up, I think, a few of the drivers who were involved in that pile-up in race 1, therefore were at the back of the grid for race 2 and really had no chance of picking their way through. And we believe, though, the track is more or less clear, and that is a huge testament to the hard-working British Marshals. We've mentioned them a few times already today. It probably won't be the last time that we thank them. They all do this for fun, believe it or not. They are doing this completely on a volunteer basis. They don't get paid, as Martin Haven was saying earlier on. In fact, they have to pay to get here. They have to pay their own food and their own expenses and their own accommodation, but they do it for the love of the sport and because you get a pretty decent seat, don't you? You get front row seats for some fabulous racing, and the Marshals hard at work now. Matt Rainbow, another driver therefore that we can cross off, will not presumably be taking the race restart. Matt Rainbow started the race, where was he? 17th on the grid. We know that we've lost Lucky Kera, who started 11th. You spotted Will Dydle, didn't you, who was off? He started 24th. There's one other, therefore, that's not
I think
yet
it was a
accounted for.
Fox car, which I think was Gordon Much.
Right,
I think
okay.
it's him.
Okay, we'll put a question mark next to him then. He started the race, where was Gordon on the 16th? There we go, just put a little question mark next to him. And of course, Morgan Quinn in the pit lane. Now, this, ironically, has worked out quite well for Morgan, who's clearly had a whack somewhere, which has damaged the front left bodywork, but there's no rule in this championship, is there, about working on the car under a red flag? You can fix up whatever you need to whilst there's nothing else happening out on track, and it's possible that Morgan Quinn could start this race from the pit lane, in which case he's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, on the grid, it's part firm conditions, can't touch the car. As a driver, you make the decision whether you think you're going to gain more by starting in your original grid position, or whether you will gain across the race by actually having a straighter car after an incident. So Morgan's taken the executive decision to go in, get a lot of tank tape on the car, and that'll hopefully be in his best interest for the race. And yeah, as you say, I mean, where was he?
Morgan Quinn started in...
Oh, he was 20th. So yeah,
yes.
if that was his original grid space, it's not going to lose too much anyway. So
No. Exactly, we've lost at least 4 drivers that weren't, well, dear, that is not a pretty sight, is it? That's Lucky Kera's number 35 car, but yes, we've lost quite a few drivers anyway that would have started in front of Morgan, so he really didn't have much to lose by pitting. It probably was the sensible decision. So Lucky Kera's car, what's left of it, is lowered onto the flatbed truck, and I think it was the last car that needed picking up. It now needs to vacate the scene. It will take another couple of minutes for the Marshals just to check there's no fluid down. If there is, they'll need to dress it. If there's bodywork and dust and debris, which there will be, I'm sure, that needs sweeping out of the way, then that will be done as well. Then we will go racing again over a shortened distance, we're being told. 10 minutes will be the new race duration. And that will be, well, lap times around here in these cars 1 3/4 minutes or so. So 6 laps more than likely will be the distance, and hopefully we will get all 6 of those laps in, because we unfortunately lost a lot of our earlier race today due to safety car. The G40 GT5 car is the ultimate evolution of the G40 platform. These G40 cars are used in 3 or 4 different Ginetta championships, aren't there? You've got the Ginetta Junior car, which is restricted because it's a junior racing car. Then you've got the GRDC, the G40 Cup, and this is as quick as you can make a GT5 Ginetta G40 go. They race on full slick tyres, a sequential gearbox. They're proper bits of kit. I'm assuming at some point you've been behind the wheel of one of these, have you, David?
Yes, 2013 I did the GT5 Championship, and these are feisty little things to drive. Very short wheelbase, very narrow wheelbase. On slick tyres, you really have to make the cars dance to get the pace out of these things. General terminology, or general thoughts on these cars: if you can drive one of these, you can drive most things because you are really on your toes when driving these. Super close, close racing as well. So yeah, to squeeze every last 100th out of these, yeah, your car control is tested to its max.
I often see particularly the G40 shaped Ginetta as almost the Formula Ford of the sports car world, because it really teaches you everything you need to know. It doesn't have that much grip, so the car moves around. It teaches you car control. They're on slick tyres, so you've got to go through the whole warming up the tyres process, which will really come in handy later on in your career. But because they're not laden with downforce, they can follow each other closely. The racing is really good, and you do kind of need to learn how to deal with other cars being all around you and working your way through the pack, don't you? Particularly if you want a career in GT and sports car racing.
Yeah, definitely. With this reverse grid format as well, I think that always adds a really good spectacle. It's nice to qualify on pole position and then just drive off into the sunset. However, when you really earn it and come from mid-grid or the back, for example, it adds another element to you. Again, your driving ability. Anyone can drive from the front and go, but to really make yourself as diverse as possible, you obviously want to be able to overtake and get to the front. And the likes of James Kellett, Max Bird, Shane Stoney, who's not driving here this weekend, have really made a masterclass of that this year.
Yes, I'm not sure anyone could win from pole position. I think you can give me a 2-lap head start and I'll still be somewhere midfield at best, but I take your point. If you've got...
As high as that?
I'm not answering that. Yes, if you've got a modicum of driving talent, then yes, starting at the front of the grid is definitely the place to be. Now, in this we've got 2 cars lining up at the end of pit lane. One of them we know is Morgan Quinn. The other one is a mystery.
Gordon.
That's Gordon,
yeah,
is it?
48
right.
car.
Right, good. So he will be at the start. It's good to only put a question mark rather than a cross next to his name. He escaped clearly the scene of the crime, and Gordon Much in the number 48 Fox Motorsport car. Good eyesight, David. Well spotted that was who it was that slipped through the middle of it, sustaining presumably some damage. I think he might be one headlight short of a full quota of headlights on his Ginetta G40, but generally speaking, the car appears to be patched up and ready to go racing on the restart. Now, because the cars are on slick tyres, they will require another green flag lap now as well, so it gives us a chance to refresh your memories as to what the grid is and who is and isn't there, because there will be a few that presumably will not be able to take the start. We know of 3 of them at least that were involved in that accident: Lord Idle, Matt Rainbow and Lucky Kira. Hoping that everyone else will be there, if not on the grid, then at least in the pit lane. Those that are lined up in the pit lane now will be able to go out on the green flag lap. They will have to start, though, either from the back of the grid or pull down the pit lane and start from pit exit. So, take 2 of the Pro Time Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge, final round 17 of the championship. And Ashley Marshall it is who has to do this all over again. He made such a good start the first time round, briefly lost the lead, fought hard to get it back. I can't even begin to imagine the frustration inside that cockpit now, knowing that he's got to do it all over again, and he's still going to have those really quick drivers coming from behind.
I think he's going to have a second go at it. I'm not sure how many times he started on pole, so this is almost like it is a take 2, where any issues he had last time round, he can try and iron out. So that was the number 98 car.
Yeah, going slowly. Not sure why. Lee Frost and Lucky Kara, who are good mates away from the circuit, and they race. We said this in race 1. Every weekend, those 2 are racing somewhere, be it in a Ginetta, a BMW, or really anything they can get their hands on. But yes, you're right. That number 98 car of Lee Frost is not going anywhere quickly. Well, any ideas, David?
It looks intermittent, whatever the issue is. He's going and then stopping.
There is power,
yeah,
but
it's almost like
not
electrical.
And they're the worst, aren't they? Because diagnosing what on earth it is that's the problem is hard enough, and then getting to it is even harder.
Can't deal with electronic issues, are horrendous.
Yes, it's frustrating enough for us when our timing screen breaks or something, and that's about as far as our electrical gremlins get. He seems to have got the car sorted now, though, or at least temporarily. Now, he hasn't, I don't think, been overtaken by the whole field, although there are now more cars going through, so scratch that. I was going to say that if he doesn't get overtaken by everybody, then he will be allowed to retake his original grid spot. But if they all go through and you find yourself right at the back of the Crocodile, then you have to start from the back of the grid. But I fear that car may be pit lane bound anyway. So, Ashley Marshall and Sebastian Arenram will line up on row 1, with Josh Hislop able to make a better start than he did first time round from third, with Ryan Hadfield alongside. Then Matt Palmer, Carlito Morocco, Jerry Nicosia. Can he make another demon getaway? And indeed, not just a good getaway, but a good first lap, as he did last time around. He will start 7th alongside Alex Toth-Jones, then James Kellett and Max Bird, and then the first of the gaps on the grid will be where 11th place starter Lucky Carer will no more be starting, because his car is in lots of little bits, unfortunately, after that incident down at chicane. Conor O'Brien will be there on the 6th row of the grid. Caught a glimpse there of the orange number 25 car of Conor Grady. He'll be coming from the 10th row of the grid. And as I said, Conor, another one of those drivers who's been a bit of an enigma this year, because when he's quick, he's really quick, but he's not quick every time, and then maybe a bit of bad luck in there as well.
Yeah, he's entertaining to watch because you never quite know what he's going to do. But yeah, he shows some real quality pace throughout the year. Again, another driver. If he comes back, he will be a front runner next year. Again, just iron out a few issues. I believe this is his first full year in the GT5 challenge, and then he can come back and challenge strongly for the title.
That's Lee Frost. Yes, sorry he was cutting that fine getting to the grid, wasn't he? I think he must have just about been able to get the car sorted. We hope. If he hasn't, he's not going to go anywhere very quickly off the line, which could get interesting.
I saw Alex Toth-Jones going to the pits, which is a shame.
From 8th on the grid. That was another good spot there, David. We'll have you back. There we go. Number 2 not taking the start from the grid. It's a rather depleted lineup, unfortunately, for a 10-minute rerun of round number 17 of the Pro Time Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. The red lights go out. Away we go again. And once again, Morocco is quick off the line. And unfortunately, Josh Hislop is not. But for the second time in a row, it will be Ashley Marshall that leads the charge down to turn number 1. Arenram this time fends off Morocco and sailing around the outside. Is that Ryan Hadfield? No, it's not, Palmer. Is it? Matt Palmer, well spotted, into second place ahead of Arenram. So Arenram was so preoccupied watching what Nicosia was doing, he forgot about the cars on the outside. He's fighting back now, though, and the Swedish colours of Sebastian Arenram back into second position. It's Marshall leading the way, sideways on cold tyres from Nicosia as he drops down the hill. He will slot into third with Morocco fourth, also at the inside of Palmer through the right-hander at the old hairpin. And now they start the long climb back uphill towards McLean's. There's James Kellett side by side with the 76 car of Morocco, who has the outside line for the left-hand kink at Schwantz, but the inside for this corner at McLean's. Is Morocco going to go through? I think he probably will. Up towards Coppice, and Jerry Nicosia not going forwards this time, actually going backwards, because Matt Palmer's at the inside of him into Coppice corner. This could open the floodgates. Kellett has a look at the inside as well, can't quite get there. So a lively opening lap, but now we're heading down to the danger zone where it all went wrong the first time around, and Arenram is challenging for the race lead. Looks to the outside, looks to the inside, no way through, and Ashley Marshall fends him off for the time being. Now, stay off those curbs, we're on cold tyres as well, let's hope they will get through safely. They're a little less lively in the midfield. There's Katie Milner again carving through in the number 50 car, doing really well. She will have restarted the race somewhere like 24th or so, as they all get to their hairpin together, David, and that really is the big pinch point, isn't it, on the track?
Everyone wants the same bit of tarmac there, but it's going to have you a little bit of order there, guys. It's only lap 1.
Yeah, well, yes, but they're only going to get about 5 or 6 laps in, so I suppose if you're going to make your moves, you need to make them as quickly as you can. Kelly took the inside of Morocco there, and I think we'll go into 5th. Yes, he will. In fact, has a stab at drawing alongside Matt Palmer as well, but can't quite do it. So, Ashley Marshall leads the opening lap. Sebastian Arenram is second. Jerry Nicosia is third. Matt Palmer is fourth and defending the inside line to try and keep 5th place man James Kellett at bay. Then it's Carlito Morocco. Then it's Max Bird on double race victor. So, Max hasn't really taken things too aggressively on that opening lap. He takes advantage of a mistake there for Carlito Morocco to move into 6th position. But Max Bird, possibly sensibly, just waiting for the first lap to unfold, find out where he is when it all shuffles out, and now he'll start picking them off.
Yeah, he's had 2 wins so far this weekend.
Yes, both
so
races.
he knows he's got the pace. It is a shortened race, so he does need to get his head down quite quickly, but he knows once everyone's got a bit more line astern and not 2 by 2, he's got the pace to crack on as quickly as he can.
Yeah, it's not quite been the clean sweep so far. He won both races, but he didn't quite qualify on pole position yesterday, missing out on that accolade by just 54 one-thousandths of a second from James Kellett, so it's been nearly the perfect weekend. Here's Katie Milner, up the inside she goes, another place gain. Number 53, Matt Conchus, drops behind and is now under pressure from the 31 car, which is trying to pick its way through as well. Charlie Digby after a non-finish in race 1. Second place, it's all stacking up here. Arenram losing time for the lead at the top markers go flying. I'm actually surprised they lasted the first lap, but they're going now as they come through the chicane for the second time. Marshall leads, Arenram second, Nicosia third. Does the move come down at the hairpin? The answer is no. For fourth place, Palmer's got Kellett to the outside and Bird applying the pressure behind as well. And as they both wash out wide, Kellett gets sideways, nearly wipes out Max Bird in the process. And Max Bird really struggling at the moment, David, to make much progress.
Yes, he's had to play it a little bit safe with Kellett being his teammate, and also doesn't want to lose a position to Morocco either. So it's one of those ones where they're so close behind as well, you can't really attack too hard because you then run the risk of losing the position.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes around here, as you know, if you go for a move and it doesn't work, you can end up losing ground.
Big move.
That was a good move, wasn't it? James Kellett wipes from the outside to the inside, takes over fourth position. That was at the expense of Matt Palmer. There's a bit of clear air in front of him to try and utilise now as he tries to bridge the gap to the leading 3. But the leader is gone. 3/4 of a second ahead at the moment is Ashley Marshall, which in Ginetta GT5 terms is an absolute age. And all of this because Arenram is all arms and elbows trying to hold on to this second place.
Yes, this is probably one of the strongest showings that Arenram's had this year. So I think he'll want to finish the season on a high and hold on to a podium. Sideways on the way in there. He's got two of the biggest championship stewards this year behind him, so he's going to have to drive one of the best races this year, I think, to keep them behind, to keep his head together.
Yeah, exactly. He's under all sorts of pressure here, and James Kellett, it's taken him half a lap to bridge that gap to the second place battle. Conor O'Brien, meanwhile, running down in 10th position, has just set the fastest lap of the race, possibly because he's not involved in the Arenram train, but at that rate, he very surely will be. Back through the chicane they come. There's Max Bird applying the pressure to Matt Palmer as they head through. There's been a collision at Coppice, though. 16 is one of the cars involved, which is Adrian Campbell-Smith, and I'm hearing number 53, it's Matt Conchus again, who's involved. Now, unfortunately, for Adrian Campbell-Smith, that car looks beached to me. It's all kicked off at the hairpin. Number 41, that is, going around.
Hadfield, is it?
You may be right, he is in a white car, isn't he? Yes, Ryan Hadfield started 4th and is no longer in 4th place. How has that shuffled this fight for second position? Well, it's still Arenram, who is fending them all off. Nicosia 3rd, then side by side for 4th between Palmer and Kellett, and maybe Max Bird, who sees that there's a gap down the outside line, decides to try and take it, then goes back to the middle-ish. I don't really think there's a way through there, though, Max. Into the braking zone they go. Nicosia takes an earlier apex there than Arenram did in front of him. Can't find a way through. Max Bird on the inside gains 1, maybe 2 places, actually. He was alongside Palmer, too, so he's gone past Kellett.
Outside of Craners.
Oh, that's brave indeed, isn't it? And
good lad.
does it, nicely done, and here comes Kellett as well on the inside. So now Max Bird is starting to make his move. Now that the heat is in the tyres, maybe, in the race, I was going to say has settled down. It hasn't really, has it? But now he's got some more confidence in his grip levels. He's starting to move forwards.
He's the danger man at the moment, isn't he? He's everyone's stacking up behind Arenram. So can he make short work of Nicosia? Double waved yellows for Campbell-Smith in the gravel. It's a shame to see his season end like that. So line astern through this part of the circuit. Can he line him up to get the slipstream and make a braking move into the chicane or the hairpins?
He's had a good exit. He's in the toe, but maybe not quite close enough to throw one up the inside. Joe Nicosia is not going to be early on the great brakes. Oh, hello, Conor Grady is all of a sudden just in front of the race leaders. He's nearly a lap down. Look at the state of the track down at the chicane, though. But it's not slowed down Max Bird. He gets a good exit, gets up the inside line towards Melbourne. As long as he doesn't outbrake himself, David, he should be able to go through.
He does what he likes. He just picks a side and then he's there. Oh. So yeah, he looks really strong there.
He's giving a helping
muscled
hand
out there, yeah.
Yeah, Kellett, I think, was at the back of him, and so James Kellett picks up 2 places in 1. Ignore the orange car at the front of the picture. That's Conor Grady. It's the black and green car of Ashley Marshall that's still leading the way. Nicosia a bit rattled, I think, by all of that. He's now trying to fight back up the inside of Palmer. There wasn't a way through. Marshall to Arenram, I think, is coming down, isn't it? Yes, Arenram was 4/10 quicker than the leader that time, so forget about defending from the cars behind. Sebastian Arenram wants a win, and he's seen a window of opportunity here with 2 laps to go. He's broken free of the maybe quicker drivers behind. could he close in on Ashley Marshall for the victory?
I will keep an eye on the sector times for this, but yeah, everyone's spread out a bit now, so we'll get to see everyone's true pace now, I think.
Yes, when they're all clambering over the top of each other, they're not going as quickly as they could be if they were sort of left to their own devices, really. There is an argument to say that the slipstream speeds you up, but then what you gain in a straight line, you probably lose by tripping over each other through the corners. Kosia there, car number 60, running in 6th position at the moment. Fastest lap is held by the 8th place man, car number 22, Conor O'Brien, who is, he started 12th, so he's gained a bit of ground and is now trying to latch onto the tail of this almighty squabble going on in front of him. There are the leaders, and while you've been watching the split times, David, what are they telling us?
Purple by Kellett in the first sector, so he's the man. Oh, look at him, he's right on the back of Arenram already. So will we see another train stack up behind? This is exactly what Ash Marshall needs. All he wants is them to keep fighting, and he can just keep his head down and continue to maintain that gap. He's only going to need to do it for probably one more lap after this now, so he needs Arenram to hold back Kellett. If Kellett can get this move done in the next couple of corners, he has the potential to take the lead, to take the win.
Just like that, you mean? That was a really nice move, wasn't it? From the outside to the inside, that was some confidence under braking. He's sort of gone through. He's now going to try and hold the inside line towards Goddard, and look who's a-coming. Max Bird is now pretty much with them. By the time we get out of this corner, having run side by side through it, he will be right with them. The Century car of James Kellett moves through into second place now. What is the gap going to be to the race leader? Marshall comes through to the 47.4, a new fastest lap though, despite the side-by-side action for James Kellett. He's 8/10 back with a lap to go, but Arenram is coming back at him, David.
Yeah, he's got to Arenram. He wants to try and hold a place on that podium, which he's now lost to Bird. I think Kellett's the danger man here. Marshall's just got to turn his mirrors away from what's behind him and really try and focus and hook together the lap and just hold it together. Otherwise, Kellett's going to be on him for both the final hairpins.
Fairly certain this will be a first ever victory for Ashley Marshall. The pressure must be unbearable inside that helmet. He's got half a lap to go, but he's got the champion reeling him in, and what a way it would be for James Kellett, excuse me, to round out his championship winning season. He's already with the race leader. They're side by side behind for third, but can Kellett get up the inside into Coppice? No, he can't. I'm not sure whether there are still yellow flags there. I don't think they are. I think they've gone in now. So it's all about the run through the Grand Prix loop, but that is where certainly one of, maybe two of the best overtaking opportunities are. David Pittard is readying himself, I think, for some fireworks here.
Yeah.
Always up the inside.
Kellett's been super decisive on the braking and two big moves he's made here. Kellett's Marshall's slightly offline here, so he's got to cover it, but he's got to cover it enough that Kellett can't do what he's done the past couple of laps.
There's a gap, he's coming through, they lean on each other, and Kellett's got the lead. Has he stopped the car? Yes, he has. Well, in fairness, Ashley Marshall did everything he could there without putting Kellett on the grass.
Yeah.
That was really fair racing.
Hard and fair.
Yeah, he knew when he was beaten, didn't he, there, I think, Ashley Marshall. And at the end of the day, a second position is still a great way to round out your season. He may still fight back on the exit of the corner, though. He's taken the wider line into Goddard's, but there's just no way through. James Kellett will win the championship, and he will round out the season in style with an astonishing race victory where he charged his way through the order from his 9th place starting position, because remember he was second in the previous race and therefore lost quite a few positions as a result of the grid reversal. There's one car, number 17, Wesley Pierce, that will not make the flag, but James Kellett does, and he takes the flag by just under 3/10 from Ashley Marshall. A brilliant drive from Ashley in second place though. Max Bird in third. Sebastian Arenram, unfortunate in a way to miss out on the podium, but Max Bird was always going to try and come through on that last lap, as he did. Nicosia 5th, Matt Palmer in 6th position, 7th for Conor O'Brien, 8th is Carlito Maraco. Not quite sure what happened to him in the second half of that race, ahead of second row starter Jock Hislop, who started third, finished inside the top 10 in 9th, and rounding out the top 10 was the 38 car of Matt Maxted. Well, that, David, is why we enjoy Ginetta GT5 racing so much. It was a cracking race. The reverse grid threw an extra element into it, and James Kellett timed it to perfection.
Yes, definitely. I think just sums up a champion's drive, really. He clearly has the pace, setting the fastest lap whilst overtaking a car as well. It proves he's got the speed. He's proved he's got the racecraft. Sorry, yeah, a very worthy and deserving champion. Big shout out to Ash Marshall as well for getting his first podium. That'll be a huge confidence boost going into the winter for him. Really hope to see him back next year as well.
And what I liked about Ash there was that there were no signs of the desperation that you would sometimes see from someone who was on the verge of their first ever victory. You know, he could quite easily have kept on coming when he was trying to defend down into this part of the circuit on the final lap and put Kellett on the grass. They could have made contact. He could have tried to fight back aggressively at the final corner, but he knew when he was beaten and realised, and this is really impressive for someone of his relative youth, that second place was better than a non-finish, or even better than a third place finish. So why risk anything major on the last lap of the season? Let's end the season on a high with the first podium result. It is not the first win though for James Kellett. The champion rounds out the season in perfect fashion with Ashley Marshall in second place, Max Berg third, Sebastian Arenram rounding out the top four, missing out on the podium on the final lap. There were lots of changes on the final lap. What was a very entertaining race. Jerry Nicosia fifth ahead of Matt Palmer, Conor O'Brien, Carlito Morocco, Josh Hislop and Matt Maxted to round out the top 10, who were separated by less than 4.5 seconds. Katie Milner, for what can you say, 28th on the grid to 11th at the flag. Alex Toth-Jones, though, unfortunately, dropped from 8th on the grid to 12th at the checkered flag. Brian Hadfield 13th despite an off ahead of Charlie Digby from the back, and Morgan Quinn from the pit lane, I seem to remember. Lee Frost was 16th, Nick Halstead 17th, 18th was Gus Bowers, 19th James Townsend, and 20th Dale Albert. And Lee Frost was the AM class victor by less than a tenth and a half over Halstead behind him. Axel van Niederveen was 21st, Matt Concross was 22nd, had an entertaining race, shall we say, and then the rest behind all had dramas. James Kellett, though, no dramas for him, and he takes the final victory of the Pro Tire Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge season. A cracking drive, and, well, I wonder what is next for that man. Likewise, for Ash Marshall, let's hope that he sticks around for another season in this championship next year. I think that his, presumably friends and family that is, are pretty happy with that result. And Ash Marshall, probably not the first tears that have flown in the Donington Park pit lane today. It's been rather an emotional day, as finals day often tends to be in any given paddock. Third place goes the way of Max Berg. 2 wins in the third, not a bad way to round out your season either. So the drivers work their way down to the end of the pit lane. We can refresh your memory as to what happened in what was a very dramatic race. Well, it all started in spectacular fashion with the initial start of the race, which led to a bit of a pile-up at the far end of the circuit. On the restart, Marshall, though, was able to hang on to the lead again. Matt Palmer briefly got into second position, with Arenram third and Nicosia again applying the pressure early doors in fourth position. One or two were on the grass a bit further back, as a couple of drivers started from the pit lane.
Alex Toth-Jones. He was clearly not happy with how the other two were taking their time pulling away.
Alex named and shamed by David Pittard, who spotted who that was up here in the commentary box. Katie Milner was moving forward very rapidly from 28th on the grid to an eventual finishing position of 11th, and she was involved in much of the midfield squabbles at the front. Marshall was escaping from the Arenram train of cars. Sebastian really defending nicely through the first two-thirds of the race to hold on to second, whilst there was a rotation for Ryan Hadfield at the Melbourne hairpin. Dust was flying out of the old hairpin as the field started to sort of settle down as the race went on. Jerry Nicosia not really able to deliver on the promise that we'd seen from the first attempt to start the race. A brilliant move, one of the moves of the day for James Kellett down at the Melbourne hairpin. Arenram tried to fight back, but it was to no avail, and that let Kellett, the champion, free to chase the race leader. Wesley Pearce had a rotation towards the end of the race, beached himself in the gravel at the final chicane, and on the final lap, James Kellett found the gap that was just about Ginetta G40 sized on the inside down at the Melbourne hairpin, and through he went. There was nothing that Marshall could do to retaliate at the final corner, and so Kellett won, with Marshall getting his first podium of the year. A great third place drive for Max Bird as well. He's been by far the biggest point scorer this weekend. It's a shame for him that it came too late for a real championship assault. So the drivers are waiting behind the podium. I don't think we're a million miles away from getting our podium presentation underway. Final one of the year for Pro Tire Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge. If you're a fan of Ginetta racing, though, good news. There's one more Ginetta race to come a little bit later on. At about 6 o'clock, we will kick off our final race of the day for the Ginetta G40 Cup, which is sort of the next level down from the GT5 Challenge. Using the same cars, though, so the racing should be just as exciting. Drivers then making their way onto the podium, and I think there are AM-class podiums to be done here as well. And the drivers make their way up at the end of what has been a hard-fought season of Pro Time Motorsport GT5 racing. There's no better feeling, is there, David, than standing on that top step of the podium. I know that you've experienced that yourself a few times in the past. Well, a great race. Thank you for joining us. Remember, we've got one more race coming up at 6 o'clock. The Pro Time Motorsport GT5 Challenge continuing to entertain.